Hello everyone, welcome back to our final pre-recorded video on the standings. In this video we're looking at the Atlantic Division standings, how I predicted the standings to go last year, how they actually did go last year, and my current predictions for this upcoming 24-25 season standings for the Atlantic Division. We'll get to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Nintendo Talkie channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. We're now to without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't leave a comment down in the comment section below so listening to all discussed in this video. Now, as usual, in this video, we're going to be looking at the Atlantic Division. So in this video, we're going to first look at how I predicted in the preseason last year, how it actually went last year, and how my predictions are for this upcoming season. So we'll start with how I predicted last year in the preseason. So as it sits right now, as usual, I'll show you a picture of it up on the screen. I had the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Atlantic Division last year with 114 points. I had Ottawa being second with 103. I had Buffalo being third with 96 points. Boston being fourth and making the playoffs as a wildcard team with 93 points. Florida missing the playoffs with 91 points. Tampa missing the playoffs with 90 points. Detroit missing the playoffs with 85 points. And Montreal missing the playoffs with 75 points. So interesting note there, I was not right for about a lot of these things, so we'll just look at it here. So that was my preseason predictions for the standings last year. In reality, the Florida Panthers did wind up winning the Atlantic Division with 110 points. So that's actually 19 points higher than what I originally predicted them. And I predicted them to be fifth. They wound up being first. So like I said, if I'm within 4 points higher or lower, or within one placement spot higher or lower, I consider that a win. But for Florida, I was way off on their prediction. They had a fantastic year last year. So interesting note there. Boston was second last year with 109 points. That's 2 spots higher than I originally predicted them, as I predicted them to have 93 points and be fourth in the Atlantic, a wildcard team. And like I said, have 93 points. So I was 16 points off on them, and I was 2 placement spots off on them. So I was definitely off on the Boston Bruins. Last year, the Toronto Maple Leafs were third in the Atlantic with 102 points. That's a little bit different than what I predicted. I predicted them to be 114 points and finish first in the Atlantic. So they were 12 points lower than I predicted them and 2 placement spots lower. So definitely didn't get that one right. For Tampa, there were 2 placement spots higher than I originally predicted them. I predicted them to be 6th. They wound up being 4th. They made the playoffs as a wildcard team, and they finished 8 points ahead of where I thought they would have been. So not the best of predictions there on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but definitely I was a lot closer than some of those other ones. Detroit wound up finishing 5th in the Atlantic Division last year with 91 points. I predicted them in the preseason to be 85 points and 7th, so I was 2 placement spots off, 6 points off, so it wasn't as bad as some of the other ones, but it was still pretty far off. For Buffalo, I predicted them to be 96 points and 3rd in the Atlantic. In reality, they finished with 84 points and were 6th in the Atlantic, so 3 placement spots off, also 12 points lower than I expected them, so it wasn't overly great season there from Buffalo. For Ottawa, I'm way off on them. I predicted them to have 103 points and 2nd in the Atlantic. They were 7th in the Atlantic with 78 points. So Ottawa was not an overly great team last year. Finished 5 placement spots lower than I originally predicted them. Also finished 25 points lower in the standings, so they were not as good as I thought they would be. And for Montreal, actually that team was the closest one. I got them right. They were 8th in the Atlantic, and it was only 1 point off. They finished with 76 points. I predicted them to have 75, so it wasn't too far off on the Canadians' point totals or the placement spots, but that was definitely the closest team I got in the Atlantic. So interesting note there, looking back at how I did last year in the preseason and how I did to what actually happened last year. So going over to my current predictions for the Atlantic Division for this upcoming season. Now at this point in time, after all the offseason moves and free agency and via trades, the drafts, things like that. So at this current point in time, I do have the Toronto Maple Leafs being the #1 team in the Atlantic Division. I think they take a step forward. They go from 3rd in the Atlantic to 1st in the Atlantic, hit 110 points with a 51-23-8 record for 8 points higher than last year. So I don't think it's going to take an overabundance of points to win the Atlantic Division this year. And I do feel that Toronto has a very good and likely chance to win the Atlantic this year, so that's my current predictions for the Leafs. Second overall in the Atlantic Division, I have the Florida Panthers. Made some interesting moves this offseason, lost a lot of pieces that were key to them winning the Cup, added a couple of depth pieces like Nosek, Boakfist on the forward group, and Whistle, added a guy like Boakfist and Schmidt on the defensive end. They now have Spencer Knight as their backup, so they made some interesting moves, but I do think they're going to take a little bit of a step back this upcoming season. I still see them hitting triple digits. I still am being a playoff team, but I think they're going to hit 104 points with a 47-25-10 record and 6 points lower than last year. So I do think they're going to be a little bit lower than they were last year. At third in the Atlantic Division, I have the Ottawa Senators. I still think they are going to be poised to take a step forward. I know I said that last year, but I think they're a little bit more better. I don't have them as high as they did last year. Still a little bit cautious on where I see them, but I have them finishing with 97 points with a 46-31-5 record, 19 points higher than last year. So I think they're going to take a step forward. I think they're going to be really good. The addition of Allmark, Perron, Amadio, Jensen, I think was really good. Did lose a couple pieces like Chikrin, like Korpisalo, Kostelic, a couple other guys in free agency like Brandstrom. So didn't do fantastically in the offseason, but I definitely think they improved enough to be a playoff team this year. Fourth in the Atlantic Division, I currently once again have the Boston Bruins. I'm not stupid enough to count them out. They did lose Allmark this offseason. They don't have Swayman signed at this point in time as they're recording this video, but I mean they did improve adding Zadorov, adding Lindholm, getting some decent depth players. Did lose DeBrus, Kynan, Forbert, so they did lose a couple of pieces, but not anything overly drastic, and they did improve their center depth, which was something they desperately needed to do. So I think Boston can be in the fourth Atlantic spot and remain a playoff team as a wildcard team. So interesting note there, I have them finishing with 95 points, 44-31-7 record, and 14 points lower than last year. So that's my current projection for the Boston Bruins. For the Buffalo Sabres, I have them just missing on the playoffs. I have them finishing with a record of 39-30-13 for 91 points, 7 higher than last year, but still missing the playoffs. It would be a huge blow to the Buffalo Sabres if they were to miss the playoffs again. Maybe they make it, but at this point in time, I currently have them finishing on the outside looking in. I mean, they did some good things this offseason. Adding Zucker, Lafferty, Malenstein, McLeod. They have a really good defense now. Goaltending-wise, it should be a little bit better, but still, I think they're not going to have what it takes to get into the playoffs. So interesting note there. I also have the Detroit Red Wings just missing on the playoffs again. I had them finishing with a record of 40-33-9, 89 points, 2 lower than last year. It's not an over bunch of difference in last year. Add Tarasenko, add Mott, add Gustafsson, add Talbot, add Campbell. Some decent moves there, but they moved on from a guy like Jake Wallman. They moved on from Robbie Fabry. Moved on from a couple of guys in free agency like a David Perron. So I don't think they got a whole bunch better. If anything, got slightly worse, and I think they will probably finish in the high 80s, low 90s this year. So I have them finishing with 89 points. At 7th in the Atlantic Division, I have the Montreal Canadiens. I have them taking a good step forward, finishing 7 points higher than last year with 83 points, a 39-38-5 record. I think that's a pretty good point total there for the Canadiens. I feel like that would be a really good step forward. Still not going to be a playoff team, still not going to be anywhere close to the playoff spot, but if they can get above 500 and get close to a playoff spot, I feel like they could be a really good team next year. So that's my current projections for the Canadiens. Like I said, did all right this year at line A, moved on from a couple of depth defensemen, going to have a younger roster this year, so I feel like Montreal is going to be really good this year. And at 8th in the Atlantic Division, dead last in the Atlantic this year, a surprise here, I have Tampa finishing there. I think Tampa is going to have a major step back this year. Could very well be a team who contends for a playoff spot again this year, but I think they're going to be taking a major step back. I have them finishing with a 35-39-8 record for 78 points, 20 points lower than last year, so I do have them taking a major step back. I think the moves were all right this offseason, but it's Gensel and McDonough are really better than Sergachev and Stamkos. I don't know, they add Moser, they add a couple of decent depth players like Atkinson, like Girgensons, but they lose a couple of really good pieces there too, like a Duclair, on top of that like a DeHaan, so they lose a couple of decent players, they add a couple of decent players, but they're not really that much better than last year, and I think a lot more teams improved than they did. So in my opinion, I have the Bolts finishing last in the Atlantic. So just to recap here, I have Toronto being first with 110 points, Florida with 104, Ottawa with 97, Boston in the playoff spot with 95, I have Buffalo with 91, Detroit with 89, Montreal with 83, and Tampa with 78. And that's my current projected point total for those teams at this current point in time for the Atlantic Division. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. How do you think I did in my preseason predictions last year? Could I have done better? On top of that, how do you think the standings did last year? Do you think the Atlantic Division was a good division last year or a bad division? And how would you view my rankings for the Atlantic Division for this year? Do you think there's some things I should change? Or do you think all of that's pretty similar to what you guys would think? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk for today. If you like this video, if you like to subscribe down below. Thank you for your support when I would just love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't leave a comment down in the comment section below so you can also listen to this video. I also blog to my news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. I'll link down in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.